Hi, I'm Vicky Carlisle, Country Living's Executive Editor, and I hope you're enjoying our first ever virtual event, Celebrate at Home with Country Living. I'm really excited to introduce to you the legendary Queen of Crafts, Kirstie Allsopp. Kirstie may be a household name now, but she actually started her career on Country Living magazine, making the tea and doing the photocopying. She and I worked together on the first Country Living fair nearly 30 years ago. I actually helped Kirstie to pawn her pearls so she could raise a bit of extra cash to spend on her favourite artisans. So if you fancy a bit of artisan shopping this weekend, don't miss our artisan pop-up fair on Instagram. Just follow @CL Artisans for more information on that. So, a few weeks ago, I caught up with Kirstie at her home in Notting Hill to talk about the old days and to tap into her expertise on home making and house buying. I hope you enjoy it.
I think the thing that I've seen more and more of in the last few years, and I think we will continue to see, is people mixing and matching. And it works very well, for example, with napkins, having different coloured napkins and different coloured plates. I think the days of everything just being monochrome are long gone. And it really means that people can bring in old stuff they might get at a car boot or a charity shop, and then introduce other new things. Because all of us like to buy the odd new thing, you know, even though we sort of know we shouldn't, we all love to do it. So I think one of the nicest things is that we've got increasing freedom. The other thing that I've seen a lot of is different textures, particularly in cushions. So you'll have a knitted cushion or an embroidered cushion or a velvet cushion or something that's tie-dye, and people being much more adventurous. It's really funny, someone posted something on social media the other day, quite a serious film. It was one of the Labour leadership candidates, and all I could look at in this little film was the crocheted blanket that was on the back of her sofa. And I finally said, love the crochet blanket. And lots of people got in touch saying, oh, I'm loving crochet blankets. I'm so glad they're back in fashion. I think that integration of crafts into more, should we say, mainstream interior decor is a lot of fun. In fashion, there's a lot more pattern. So you're seeing pattern dresses and pattern skirts, which is really, really nice. And I think that is reflected in interiors. People are getting braver about wallpaper, braver about floral fabrics. It's there. And so although I've never been very good at following trends, partly because I'm always looking for longevity and partly because I like vintage stuff, the vintage trend is chintz is no longer a banned word. Chintz is definitely on the comeback. Whether it's actually the sort of glazed fabric, not so much, but floral fabrics, floral prints, what's the word, you know, with animals on. You're seeing a lot more of that kind of thing, which is really, really nice. Sometimes it's just a cushion, and sometimes it's the whole room, the whole sofa, or the whole wall. So what I found is that because there's much more of that around and I'm seeing it much more, I am feeling much happier about embracing it. I always in the past wanted to have pattern, but slightly felt that too much of it was a bad thing and it all looked a bit crazy. And now I'm much more mix and match. I really do think probably mix and match is the sort of key word. I think it's about texture and colour and pattern much more than those sort of solid blank colours and sort of, you know, what's the word? A fabric which just doesn't have any feel to it. You may have heard me say this before. Please be careful with the grey. it's become an obsession. I am seeing it across the country. And yes, done very, very carefully with the use of a very pale grey, it can work. But look, this is a country which doesn't have that much light, particularly in the winter. And what you need is light to reflect light. If you have a dark grey room, you've got no light to bounce around. It's unenvironmentally friendly. You have to light a room more if you painted a darker colour. So although I know that grey is incredibly fashionable, and I got a call from a PR the other day who said, did you know grey is the most fashionable paint colour? And I'm not deliberately saying this because it's fashionable, I want to be contrary, but I've seen a lot of houses over the last year where grey has been used in a, slightly slapdash way, not enough masking tape, and probably, when you look at those paint charts, always pick the palest colour on the paint chart. So if you want grey, go for the kind of rain cloud, misty ones, not for the, slate colours. You could look around my home and think, well, she's not a Marie Kondo girl, but I am entirely and completely. I do believe that an object should be useful or beautiful, genuinely beautiful. It should make your heart sing. One of the things I see up and down the country is a lot of posh landfill, and people have bought things and been given things that they are spending a lot of time working around. I think all of us are spending time tidying up, putting away, dusting things, shifting things, which we don't actually want or use or love. So what I really hope for 2020 is that we can combine the two things that we need to do. One is to declutter and the other is to buy secondhand. And something that you don't really love is bound to be loved by someone else. You've just got to find a way of getting it to them, whether that's via FreeCycle or one of the other sort of community hubs where people give stuff away, or a charity shop. Whatever tool you use, it shouldn't go in the bin or on the bonfire. But it's really important that I think that we make our lives easier. We all lead such busy lives, work, family, elderly relatives, children. Everybody, whatever their circumstances, has an increasing degree of responsibility. And I think while I always want my home to be decorative and full of things I love and to be pretty and to have cushions and flowers, I don't want to be at the mercy of my own home. I don't want to be its slave. I want it to be relatively easy to get in and out and to enjoy it, to enjoy cooking and entertaining and being with my friends, etc., without that thing of permanently having to dust things. And I know there are people who don't even believe in dusting. And if you're a person who doesn't believe in dusting, then you have to get rid of all the stuff. Otherwise it just sits there collecting dust. So I think one of the things that I hope is a trend for 2020, but is also a plea from me, is to look around. I did it about 2 or 3 years ago on Love It or List It. I did something with someone and I went into their sitting room and I looked all around and I put a whole lot of things that I thought were surplus requirements in a box and I took them out of the room. And I said to the person whose room it was, I said, I've got a box of your stuff next door, and if you can look around this room and tell me anything that's missing, you can have it back. But if you can't tell me it's missing, then it's going to the charity shop. You'd be amazed how much stuff was still in that box at the end of the day. I think there are various ways in which one can live sustainably. The first is to live colder, to turn down the thermostat. It's really important that we all learn to wear a cardi more often and not live in overheated homes, and the same with light. It may seem like it's a drop in the ocean, but the ocean is made up of billions of drops. I think that food waste is an enormous issue and we've all got to buy less. We're really strict now about emptying the fridge. We just won't go and buy more stuff unless we have genuinely got an empty fridge. And then when you do get rid of the waste, I think being very strict with yourself about reuse, recycling is incredibly important. There are loads of lessons which we were taught by previous generations, which we have rushed to forget. And I think if we look back over, people used to laugh about their grandparents having yogurt pots stacked in the kitchen. But actually that thing of looking after packaging and reusing it is incredibly important. We can't live in a world of single-use plastic. It's not always easy, but I think eating seasonally, looking at where things are coming from, and actually not going with the knee-jerk things that you hear about what may or may not be environmentally friendly or less environmentally friendly. I think it's quite important to educate oneself, but definitely the old, the old thing of reuse, recycle, make, do, amend, those are the most incredibly environmentally friendly rules. I mean, they really are, it's a modern way to live if you are conscious of the environment. If I was thinking of selling a property this year, where would I start? Well, I'd start with a clean front door, very importantly, and a decluttered hall. And I would go through the entire house and put anything that I didn't need in the next 6 months in storage, and not necessary storage in your garage. Get rid of anything. I always say to people, move before you market. That is incredibly important. Essentially, get rid of any stuff that you're not going to move with. It'll reduce your moving costs. And then invest in a few things which you would buy once you got to your house. So if you're thinking of a new toaster or a new kettle, if you're thinking of some new towels or some new bed sheets, buy them now to make sure that your house has a reasonably crisp and fresh look. You don't need to buy loads of new stuff, but just anything that's looking a little grotty and you think, oh, I'll buy a new one when I move, buy it now, because you get to take it with you. You don't sell a house with a toaster. But I think the move before you market rule is very important. So essentially, think about, because the majority of people who sell their homes are selling them because for some reason they've fallen out of love with them. They've sort of mentally moved often before they've physically moved. And that comes across. The number of houses that I go and see which are tired for no good reason. The other thing is, if you've got any half-done DIY projects, finish them. There is nothing more off-putting than a half-done DIY project. I was editorial junior initially, then I was editorial assistant. So basically I was a floating helper. And this was a big mistake because it meant that I could choose to a degree who I helped. So if someone asked me to do something boring, I would say, oh, I'm really sorry, I can't do it because I'm helping that person. So I was helping on the homes desk, on the food desk, I was helping on the features desk, sometimes helped the art department, sometimes for a treat got to help the fashion department. There was just one person, Robert, in the fashion department, that was it. But it was a great job. I was 20 when I started. I was there for 3 or 4 years. And it was brilliant, and I learned so much which has gone on to inform things that I've done since, particularly in with craft. So a lot of the things I believe to do with food, sustainability, how to eat, that came from country living a long time ago, a long time before most people were thinking about these things. But then when I went on to do the craft shows, the people that I invited to come on the shows were all people that I knew about through my time in country living. I learned about planning throughout the year. When you work on magazines, you work quite a long way in advance, and you have to think ahead and anticipate changes and trends and what's coming and what people are going to want to read about in the future. I think I'd gone through school, and my dad and my mum were both interested in works of art, but it was more fine art. And I think when I got to country living, it was the small things, the small craft projects, the small craft people who... There was a section of the magazine, Magpie, where there were these little bits which were written about little artisans and, you know, someone who was making this or writing this or doing something. It was just a really, really lovely section of the magazine. And I mean, I had a passion for Radio 4, but the weird thing about my time at Country Living was that a lot of the things that interested my parents didn't interest me until I got to Country Living, and I became interested in them myself, like my absolute passion for Radio 4 and anything related to Radio 4. I think there is a very strong link between Country Living magazine and Radio 4, which has always been there, and which I see so much of. If Country Living had been asked their opinion, Nigel Pargeter would still be alive today. So I went from Country Living to classified sales at NatMags, which is the group that owns Country Living magazine and the other UK magazines in the family. And when you did classified sales, you had to cold call. You had to get hold of the yellow pages and you had to ring people and you had to sell to them. And I absolutely know that my time in classified sales and the amazing training I got there informed what I later went on to do. You know, negotiating, ringing up estate agents, all of the sales stuff, that's where I learned it, was in classified. And I also, what's rather extraordinary is that the whole team who were there in classified and started when I did, there were 5 of us, they've all gone on to work in media, in radio or newspaper or television advertising. One of the people I used to work with now works at Channel 4, and I know a lot about, you know, selling ads on telly, and obviously that's what pays my wages. So it's really hard to explain how much of my time at Country Living and at NatMags and continues to be of quite a lot of importance in my professional and personal life. I just wanted to say a huge 35th happy birthday to Country Living magazine and show you this. This is my 21st birthday present from the team at Country Living when I was working there. I absolutely love it. I've kept it all these years, and I hope that Country Living is still going strong in another 35 years. God knows whether I will be.